literature so I can write, and I studied poetry specifically. When the speaker, the PRA person, Lawel, of a committee that has been appointed by students, some of whom were aspirants in the halted guild election, says to me, Stella Nyanzi, how dare you write what you write? You know, what you're saying is based on lack of information about what happens on the ground. Like, respectfully, fuck you, Mr. Speaker. I do not entertain silencing on any grounds. And so I want to echo what my counsel, Isaac Semakade, has said. This is a public university. All the public in Uganda matter. All our voices matter, especially now when student voices have been silenced. And I don't enter this space humbly, politely asking or begging any of you for permission to state what I have to state. If what I am saying is wrong, bring the evidence, bring the data. We can no longer rely on police investigations because the university, in collusion with the police and the prisons and the courts of this country, are working under captivity and in collision with dictator Yoweri Museveni. So excuse me if I'm very passionate about saying to you, don't tell me not to speak about Bewate. His name is Bewate Betungura. You're all saying, a student was murdered. It's unfortunate. A student was murdered. His name is Bewate Betungura. A young man studying law, a university student. I am a mother. I have twin boys called Kato and Waswa. I hope one day they will go to university. I do not want another Bewate. Who murdered Bewate during an election? And you tell me, Stella Nyanzi, shut up. I will speak until you begin speaking in the voice of anger, which is murder. Murder. You guys, murder at Makerere University. Makerere has been murdered. All the honor has been taken out of the Great Hall. We build for the future, the Great Makerere. Isaac talked about our main building, that icon for which we stand, which we stood, which we believed in, which we were created. It was burnt down. It was burnt out. The lifeline of Makerere is crumbling, is dead. We've been raped, we've been captured, and you're telling me not to speak? What future are we talking about? The last thing that we have as thinkers, as scholars, as students, as academics, as anybody who has a bit of brain is voice and articulation. Voice and articulation, voice and articulation, whether we whisper, whether we scream, whether we shout, whether we are vulgar like Stella Nyanzi, we must speak. How does Nawangwe close your leadership and you wait for 2 weeks? And you wait for 2 weeks, Makerere University. Atira, aticha, atira, atia Makerere. Oh yeah, what? Oh yeah. What? Oh yeah, you students. What? Oh yeah. What Oye is there? We should be saying, Makerere Z, you're an embarrassment and a disgrace. You don't just murder each other as young people of Uganda. You're murdering voice. Like, fuck you all. Respectfully, fuck you again. Go and study what fuck you mean with when a woman is angry, when a mother is angry and she's talking to young people and she says, fuck you. Don't silence me again. Silence me with your voices. How many of you have spoken about Sulaiman? Sulaiman Namwoza. Sulaiman Namwoza. His name is Dr. Sulaiman. He's been called doctor way before he even graduated with his degree. A student of pharmacology who was suspended. Why? Because he organized a voicing, an articulation, an assembly online. Digital rights are being taken away again. I'm a victim whose voice was being criminalized. I feel passionately for Suleiman Namoza because yesterday I was tired. I've been traveling with my children. A student said to me, another student has been suspended. Roy Rugumayo was my campaign manager. We lost a campaign. Roy got up and he ran and he joins UNSA. And Roy was suspended together with 3 others. And I said, where are the voices calling out for justice? Where are the voices organizing? Where are the voices running riot and amok and becoming ungovernable? How can we have students at the great hill of Makerere, with all our culture, all our heritage, all our empowering, silent, and you're silenced by who? By Nawangwe. A man in his evening years, 65 years old. Nawangwe silenced you, all of you. The Mitchellites. These ones I'm singing about. For the cause to defend Mitchell Hall, we promise to unite our... My father went to Mitchell Hall. Thank God he's dead. His blood and his voice would be so pained that the students of the great University Makerere are now governable. You're governable. You must be ungovernable. You must be ungovernable. Now is not a moment to start negotiating and saying silent. Okay, now we are organized. I have heard of leaders who are suspended, colluding and sitting with this council in private. Nawangwe suspended you. When student leaders are called, what business do you have going behind doors, closed doors, moreover, and meeting people working on behalf of Nawangwe? What is going on? Where is the power in the balls of the male students in all those halls of students and in the hostels? Is your power just for eating chukubi chukubi? And so I don't come into this space to talk about organized protest and how can we mobilize. What future do you have when you don't even have rights in the present? You have no rights today. You have no rights. Rights to do what? To be suspended? To be disciplined? To be told when you can sit and when you cannot sit? Like where? What happened? What happened to Makerere? Where is the way where I used to see? In 1973 to 1980 guild elections, there were no elections in Makerere. There was no guild council. Isaac talked about the importance of history. 1981 to 1983, there were no elections. 1973 is 1 year before I was born. Dictator Idi Amin was in power. 73 to 80, 7 years. No elections, great turmoil, civil war, disaster. The university had become a place of killing and conspiracy and espionage. Okay? Dictator Idi Amin had no elections. And we are ushering in another period of no elections, similar to one after 1981 to 1983. What do we know about Uganda's history? And so during dictatorships and civil war and general collapse of the social fabric, student leadership is suspended. Learn to read the times. I don't know if you're comrades or sons or children. I don't know who you are to me, but learn to read the times. What is happening is a repetition of what happened in Idi Amin's time, is a repetition of what happened in Obote too. And you're doing what? You're doing what? You're doing what? Like, what are you doing? Meeting with those who lick the bums of... I don't know what you're doing. And you're expecting that you're going to say, we'll have no exams until they reinstate leadership.
Blessings.
I heard the message from Namoza Suleiman. I have never met Namoza Suleiman. I don't know what he looks like. When I was told about his story last night, I said, what political party is he? Because if he is a member of Forum for Democratic Change, perhaps I will not be able to engage with his suspension. People have politicized and depoliticized and taken the radical away from the organizing around the punitive suspensions, which are acting as deterrents. They're very well intentioned and calculated, and the mathematics with which they're dispensed is... read the times, people. Okay, if Namoza is suspended, why is he suspended? Who else would put up their heads? Now is the time to put up your heads and say, So the people who had the press release, salutes to you. But what else are we doing? We can't afford to kill the voice of our partners and comrades who come on board. I'm a mother. I'm not just a mother. I've done studies, like I've told you, through all the levels. I slept in CCE hall, I slept in BB hall, in DD hall, and I slept in the main building. I slept in Kruma, in Northcote. We used to call it Northcote. It's now called, oh fuck, I forgot what it's for called. Gruma Hall, I think.
Yeah, it's divided in Kuruma Hall and Sibira Hall.
In Sibira. So I slept in Sibira because I was state property. You know what it means to be state property. One of the GRCs, Samuel Dawa, was a good friend of mine. He had his own room. I didn't want to sleep in the shitty rooms of CCE. So every time when Samuel Dawa went to play sports, I would sleep in Northcote. I was protected by the generals and major generals of the Great Northcote Hall. We have cultures of violence at Makerere University. We must admit that the blood of the students who have died is on our hands. I want to thank Comrade Isaac Semakade without discussing with me. He said, you are responsible for the murder of one of your own. People have said he's not a member of UCU, right? But who doesn't know how degenerate the electioneering at Makerere has become? That it's not just only students from UCU and other universities who come to participate. If it was engaged debate, that would be fine. But the buying of alcohol and the intoxication of the bayaye all around us in our ghettos, in Makerere Chikoni and all around Chivuru down here, Chikumi, and we give them t-shirts and we give them sticks and bottles. Okay, so when we call for re-election of student politics, what are we calling for? Instead of taking all that wrath and organizing to take Museveni out, we are using the wrath and organizing to fight each other violently, student on student. Is that what we want to call for? We're not having exams until we beat up each other in order to have elections. When we say we want guild elections in Makerere, what are we calling for? What are we calling for? That therefore all of us who want to participate in these elections are going to have to take sides with who and who not? What are we calling for? And so when we talk about student rates, I want to say for me that Nawangwe is doing what all the others have done. Perhaps Nawangwe he still has a pretension because he works through his PA. His PA has a gun. His PA threatens to murder. His PA can actually get students arrested and detained and suspended and slapped with trumped up charges. This is the system that illustrates how low Makerere has fallen, and this is the environment from which we are claiming students' rights. And I think for me, before we even talk about the future, let's talk about now. Like now. Makerere has disintegrated so badly that if one is in NUP and I'm in FDC and another is in NRM, okay, we can't even meet young women. I've watched young women in the elections and the level of violence meted out to them. One student threatening another student. I've witnessed the way, one way. When one way becomes one way, the sort of violence, the misogynistic, patriarchal, heterosexist violence that you young men mete out to our young women. And those are the elections you want to have again? Those are the elections you want to hold again? I have nothing against student leadership and student engagement if this engagement is going to be for the greater good. But how harmless is the leadership of students at Makerere? You've become a disgrace. And if I don't say that, then we want reform. We can't just say, hey, okay, now let us go back to lining up in our halls of residency. And then we don't also do online. Okay, maybe we have online and offline. What are we doing? What are we replicating if the system must return? Burn down the existent system. We need student leaders because we don't have IDs. We need student leaders because students in year 2, who, although there's a portal, they don't have exams. How have the current students served you? The way they are serving you is even when they are suspended, they are going behind back doors to meet with your oppressors. So what are you talking about? You don't have a student leadership? I am going to summarize with one word. We cannot talk
Just,
about a
just request
future.
to interject.
We cannot talk about a future of students' rights if we don't interrogate what we even mean by rights. The right to voice, the right to assemble, the right to organize, the right to question, the freedom of conscience and thought. When Namoza Suleiman is suspended for organizing an online meeting, that is crossing the line. We should be organizing around how do we reclaim the university back for ourselves, back for the public, back so that those of us who envy the students who go to Makerere are envying a body of young people who hold the future. But the Makerere that I see today, there is no future in you. Organize, speak out and act. We've been divided around the elections, the current elections that were halted. We've been bitterly divided. Maybe it's time to now interrogate and be introspective, look at ourselves and say, how better can we organize? If we're going to do this organizing that is partisan, NUP versus FDC versus NRM, like, I would rather we don't have, let Nawangwe stay with his guild. Give Nawangwe his guild elections if he thinks that he can have a university without students. How does a university even define itself in the absence of students and student leadership? What are they doing? It is this same nonsense of saying, oh, Council Isaac, can you first speak? And then, Madam Doctor, can you first speak? Students have to speak for students' rights. We can ally with you. We can partner with you. We can speak with you. We can stand with you. But this is a student battle. If students lose their education, if students lose their whatever, I have my degrees. When I raise my voice in relations to students' rights, it's because Makerere University belongs to Ugandans. It is the first and oldest public university. It must be salvaged. We are redeeming Uganda, liberating Uganda. We are removing a dictator. First, remove the dictators in your halls of residence. Remove the dictators in your courses. Remove the dictators who teach you. Remove that dictator at Makerere. This Nawangwe wants to come again past retirement. We saw it with Mahmoud Mamdani. What is Nawangwe even thinking about? If there was a credible source of student organizing and leadership with the sort of power that you have, we want to boycott exam Z, we won't have exam Z if we don't have student leaders. First boycott Nawangwe's reinstatement. First boycott Nawangwe. How can he even think about, oh, we can work around the students, make it very difficult for him to govern you and silence you so he can come back for another 5 terms? Another 5 terms that will usher in the next 5 years of Museveni's dictatorship. Like, seriously, guys. So I'm first spent. I've been traveling. I came from Austria, returned to Germany. I am tired, but I had to engage in this discussion. If I have offended you, be offended. Be very, very offended, and then act. I am called a mad woman. I am called a naked woman. I am called irresponsible. I am called immoral. Okay, you're all sane. You're not mad. You're all moral, you're not immoral. None of you has undressed in public for anything. Okay? You're better than me. Show me that you're better than me because I brought Makerere University to its knees by undressing
Doctor,
one morning. Do something better, organize better. I was one woman with a few comrades. I was able to
Doctor
bring
Stella,
Makerere down to its knees, organize better. There is no future rights for students in future if the present is as rotten
Doctor Stella,
as it
allow me
is.
interject a bit as you move forward. Allow me interject a bit.
I don't
You
want you to interject. I just want to stop and listen to other people. I hope I have irritated people well enough so that people can take action. Take action. Don't even ask me questions. Take action.
I hope they have heard. Though I would request you to. I would request that you answer this. Um, you're saying that the students should rise up as Makerere has always been. No, the mode of the Makerere University students to demand. Okay. Uh, is she still a speaker? Okay, I was questioning Dr. Stella Nyanzi to justify on what she's really suggesting for the students because from what Comrade Lowell has been speaking, is that it's only befitting that they first have negotiations from the students with the university council, so that they devise a mean way forward, and then they shall have it on from there if at all fails. So I wanted to ask Dr. Stella Nyanzi whether she doesn't support the intellectual discourse happening between the students and the administration. Perhaps I think it could be of a good cause. But
But
I think
Josepha,
she will gain the microphone back, and then we shall get into
Josepha,
the
I
discussion.
can answer your question for you.
Yes,
The
Comrade.
Nalong has been very clear.
Mm.
Nalong has been very clear. Lowell's committee is illegitimate. They should stop carrying themselves as